Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to run through a league with Grixis Midrange in Standard. I've recently done a deck tech and sideboard guide regarding Grixis Midrange, so I wanted to run through a league and explain my plays, sort of coach through it, genius plays, misplays, and all. So let's look at the deck we're going to be playing through this league. So this is the version of the deck that I think Jabberwocky got into the finals of a challenge a few weeks ago with. And the long and short of this deck is that you're trying to 1-for-1 with your opponent with the removal spells and counter magic, get card advantage and card selection with Fable the Mirror Breaker, Invoke Despair, and Reckoner Bankbuster, and then have creatures that do more than just being creatures and just applying pressure, like Blood Tithe Harvester being able to remove and filter your draws, Wandering Mind and Corpse Appraiser both getting you a card as well as being a body, and then a sideboard, big stuff, you know, these control non-creature based mid-range decks, aggro deterrent, non-creature stuff, other removal. And by the way, we're playing a Braid over the Go for the Throats in the main deck because the blue-red ramp deck is super good at this point, so we need to edge against that just a little bit. And these cards are just kind of mid-range breakers. So I'm a fan against like mono-red with this card though. That being said, let's jump into the games. All right, let's jump into this Standard League. Looking at our opener, we mulliganed. The first opener was a one-lander. This is totally fine. We put back one of the lands. We just trust that our deck is going to be good to us. It was good to us. And the thing is, if it wasn't good to us, we can just like play Bankbuster on 2 and just activate the Bankbuster, which is totally fine for us. Still decided to play the Bankbuster because we read that we're playing one of these mid-range mirrors. Also means that we can just like attack with Bankbuster. Chooses to go for the throat, the Blood Tithe Harvester. Jam with Bankbuster. Generally, this is just one more damage than if we did it the other way around. This is totally okay for us. It just kills it with Brotherhood's End. We're able to draw a card, hit Wandering Mind off Corpse Appraiser. So far, a lot of these like plays have been pretty straightforward. Again, I did Bankbuster first so that we can get in that extra damage. That's really the only like difficult play so far. Playing Wandering Mind, we're able to grab Invoke Despair off Wandering Mind. I decided to kill the thing so that we can like definitely get in. There's probably an argument there for attacking first because like give him the chance to mess up and chump block, but you know, killing the thing means you definitely get in the damage. They fill the board, so now they have access to Bankbuster, which is a little annoying. But if we just Invoke Despair them, then that's great for us. They man up Bankbuster so that they have a blocker for a Corpse Appraiser after they sack, and we just hit him for 2, which is totally okay. Now we're sitting super pretty, except for the Brotherhood's End. But we have be able to leave Mank Disappear up after we play a Fable, so we can filter some draws. The issue is now they have so much mana, it's really difficult to like do anything. I think the Fable is obviously more valuable than our 2/2, so we make Disappear with the Casualty to counter the Fable. They play the Blood Tithe Harvester and are able to jam in. So this is like a super swingy mid-range matchup. I decided to ship the counter spell because they have so many lands and play the Blood Tithe Harvester and the Reckoner Bankbuster with the ability to draw. So hopefully we're at a spot right now that we can like be able to, you know, sit for a second, get that card advantage. However, they play the Sarah Paragon, which is kind of our worst enemy, because we're just trying to get like a lot of advantage, a lot of card selection, have our cards like do better things than our opponents. And this card lets them 2-for-1 over and over and over, which is totally miserable for us. And they kill our Blood Tithe Harvester, which is brutal. And jam in Reckoner Bankbuster. So now there's pressure, and we're like on like the super back foot right now. We hit Blood Tithe Harvester off the Reckoner Bankbuster trigger, and then a land. So after I hit a land off of Reckoner Bankbuster, I kind of just decided to concede, mostly because they're able to get back another Blood Tithe Harvester, putting up 3 blood tokens. Even if I play the Blood Tithe Harvester that's in my hand right now, I'm unable to Reflection of Kiki Jiki it so that we can kill the Sarah Paragon, because you can just crack the extra Blood Tithe Harvester to kill either Reflection or my Blood Tithe Harvester. If I decide to sandbag the Blood Tithe Harvester, then Reflection's dead, and by that time I'll be dead in the air and on the ground, so it's just not worth it to play out the game. So we see this opening hand. This opening hand's fine. It's not really what we're looking for, but I mean, we can play turn 2 Bankbuster, turn 3 Wandering Mind, and be in pretty good shape. I decide to keep it, play our tap land, and move on. They also play a tap land and pass back. Totally normal stuff. We're just going to play a land and play Bankbuster. You know, it's literally our only play. Trying to go a little bit slower this time. It's too bad the play isn't just slightly slower than just like super duper fastness, like what it is. They match our Bankbuster with a Spirited Companion. They draw a card immediately. That's totally okay for us. We are just going to use our mana efficiently and play Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Also means we can sort of filter our draws because there might be some cards in our hand that we won't end up using. So we do filter our draws. I decided to ship the Bankbuster because it's not really doing anything on the board. It's possible that's a mistake to ship the Bankbuster, but I want cards that like really do something. You know he's gonna Breath of Sudden or something here. But I in cards that want to do something, Bankbuster wasn't really doing something with the Bankbuster I haven't really activated yet, already on the battlefield. Unfortunately, we hit lands off of it, which is really brutal. But we're able to hit a Siphon Insight off of Wandering Mind. And Siphon Insight is really our mid-range, our slow deck breaker, which we absolutely love. Hiki Jiki flips, which is disgusting with Wandering Mind, so this is now a must answer. This is kind of a difficult call, but I do decide to Siphon Insight to see what we have to work with. We hit Soul Transfer. Soul Transfer is an interesting situation because if we can keep this enchantment, then we can actually hit both modes of this Soul Transfer. But it's not really an option this turn. So unable to use the second mode, and the first mode isn't really anything. So just play our Wandering Mind, get an Invoke Despair. Like, we have a pretty disgusting situation right now. With our summoning sick creatures, we mana Precon or Bankbuster, jam in for a bunch of damage, which gets Wandering Emperor. So now I feel really silly for discarding Bankbuster. So I really, it's possible in these mid-range mirrors you just like never discard Bankbuster unless you absolutely need lands or something. I'm not really sure. Might have just been silly to do that. It might have been silly just to attack with Bankbuster knowing they play the Wandering Emperor. They're able to flashback Soul Transfer with Bloodthirsty Adversary so that I can't use my Soul Transfer, which, to be fair, they don't know about. But does kill the Wandering Emperor because we were able to kill it with Wandering Minds anyway. And the only obvious play is just casting Invoke Despair, taking out 2 of their things, hitting a card, and now we are really in a driver's seat at the moment. Whoop. You know, they just jam in and cast their Serra Paragon. Again, this card really wrecks us, except we have the answer, and we can double spell while answering it, which is amazing. So they just get to draw an extra card, put a 1/1 on the battlefield with Serra Paragon. We play Henrika Dumnathi, which is an amazing mid-range and control breaker because we get to draw cards, flips into something that matters, and we continue applying pressure in the air. So we have tempo advantage right now. We really have card advantage with the Siphon Insight in the graveyard, Siphon Insight in my hand, and we're loving life at the moment. And they're just playing a bunch of cards that don't matter, frankly. You know, we get to keep applying pressure. Overall, we even hit the negate. You know, we hit his Serra Paragon. You know, so we just cast Serra Paragon, negate back up. I think about casting the Reckoner Bankbuster from the graveyard, but I'd rather just hold the negate in my hand. I decide to transform to apply even more pressure in the air. Put him dead next turn. I have to leave a blocker back, unfortunately. So this is the big reason why I left negate back. Because, like, it's really important this thing lives because it gains me life. And this is a 2-turn clock no matter what. As long as I'm able to protect these homies that are attacking. They try to draw a card. Draw more cards, and I think they concede here. I can't really remember. I think the point of this attack is just to gain life. We're like, deal, take the damage, and then they concede. So they're unable to gain life. And we win that game. So on to game 3. What grindy games? So in game 3, this hand's like, fine. I don't feel good about it. But we kind of have to trust our deck that we are going to draw cards that actually matter. I'm going to go back to playing because it's like really just hitting play rather than going piece by piece. It's really, really slow pace. I wish just the play was just a little bit slower. Play the tap land. It's pretty straightforward. They just play a land and pass the turn. We play a land and pass the turn back. So now we have negate, go for the throat. So pretty much no matter what they play, except for the goodest boy, we can get rid of. But then they miss their land drop, which means we can Fable the Mirror Breaker and execute bury them plan. Able to destroy Able Fable, but we still get the Goblin. So it's still like a 1.5 for 1. They miss their land drop again, and this is where we bury them. We're just going to play a Reckoner Bankbuster, pass the turn with negate, go for the throat up. They miss their land drop again. You know, we are hit our cards. Play Henrika, which again is just disgusting. Notice we played it post-combat, though. So a couple of reasons post-combat. One, to like try to get them to do something when we attack, but also like I get to decide next turn what I want to do with her. Probably just draw a card. Because I want the option to, especially when I have the Goblin out, when I'm willing to sack the Goblin, for us both to, I want the option for us both to sack a creature, before I flip her as long as possible. But we're just burying in card advantage. This like just doesn't get to be a game. Don't you worry. They did hit their 3rd land, so you know, we'll see. Right. And I neglect to cast a Blood Tithe Harvester just to leave negate up. Just, you know, bask in the card advantage. I had to go for the throat Blood Tithe Harvester just to keep clearing the way. I smell blood. You know, means we deal even more damage with Invoke Despair and creates lethal the following turn. And then the game is over. The match was actually pretty good. It's too bad that game 3 was so bad. This Mardu deck's really neat. Just gets to play a lot of cards. I tried to make a Mardu deck early on, but I just couldn't make it work. But the deck's really cool. So now 1-0 in the league. We go into this next match. This opener is fine, right? We have negate, we have Reckoner Bankbuster, depending on what they have. They play Xander's Lounge, so it's likely the mirror match. Just play a land and pass, play another Xander's Lounge, again, likely the mirror match. Unfortunately, we don't have that the blue source for negate, so we just play Reckoner Bankbuster and don't worry about it. I feel really bad about it though in the face of Fable and Mirror Breaker, but we match it with our Fable and Mirror Breaker. We're a little ahead on board, even though we're on the draw. So we'll see how this goes. Though negating the Fable and playing our own, even if we didn't have Bankbuster on the battlefield, would be so much better. I decided to block, just an opportunity to keep the board clear. And of course, like if I don't block, there's a obvious option that I gotta pause for a second. There's an obvious option that you know, they just like kill my Goblin. Now they're up on mana and I don't get to attack back. With the Fable trigger, I decided to discard land, go for the throat, leaving a land in my hand to make sure I still hit my land drops, but I can still search for action and go for the throat. And just, frankly, spot removal in general is not super good in this matchup. It's obviously good for a flipped Fable of the Mirror Breaker, but a lot of the cards don't, especially creature cards, don't do a lot themselves. I'll feel really silly if they play a Shieldred or something like that, but a lot of the more recent lists haven't been playing Shieldred. So play Blood Tithe Harvester, man up our Reckoner Bankbuster to jam in, obviously get punished again, and then surprise when we don't. So play Stern Lesson. So at this point, it's like, okay, so it is no longer... Well, I guess we knew when they played Island, we knew for sure it wasn't the mirror match, and probably with Storkarm Coast. But this is very obviously now, especially with the discarded Cityscape Leveler and, you know, the Power Stone token. It's very obviously the is it control, is it ramp deck that we're playing against. So this is a control, is it ramp deck, is built to beat Grixis. So it's a little nerve-wracking, and I know we need to apply pressure because if the game goes late, they're just going to be windmill slamming artifacts that we can't deal with. So this is where I sort of changed the mode of the game, and really, like, I need to start actually doing stuff now. Unfortunately, they play Might Stone, Weak Stone. I still don't have access to that blue mana. We're able to kill Blood Tithe Harvester. Feeling really silly for keeping this hand at this point, unfortunately. I decided to take out Might Stone, Weak Stone with a Braid, just to delay the big nasty artifacts for one more turn. You remember they have a Cityscape Leveler in the graveyard. And decide to discard Negate with that blood token. And play our Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. Remember, Negate's still not doing anything. There's a couple ways that this game would have totally gone differently. One of the ways is if I decided not to block that goblin and decide to attack with the goblin instead of block, that the game would have gone drastically differently. If I, just mulligan that hand, obviously the game would have gone differently. Just having access to these negates would have been very valuable. Unfortunately, I don't. Play a Cityscape Leveler, start taking out our stuff. We still don't have access to blue mana, unfortunately. At this point, man, it's rough. It's a rough go. However, there is a little bit of hope, right? Because we have a reflection of Kiki-Jiki that is not being dealt with. So what we can do is play our Blood Tithe Harvesters, use the Power Stone token they gave us to copy a Blood Tithe Harvester, and now we can kill anything that's 6 or less. So unfortunately, we're going to have to eat a Cityscape Leveler attack, but after playing the Blood Tithe Harvester with our hand, we're going to have 4 blood tokens, which means we can actually kill a Cityscape Harvester by sacrificing a Blood Tithe Harvester. And he has to take out our Reflection of Kiki-Jiki with the attack from Cityscape Leveler. So things are suddenly reasonably stabilized, I guess. Especially, so even though they have 2 Cityscape Levelers in their graveyard, we can abrade them before they attack. Things are kind of okay, which is super weird. And so we go back to the plan of applying pressure and really hope that those Cityscape Levers in the graveyard are literally the only thing they can do to us. It's unlikely with the Stern Lesson, but we'll see. We also have access to these Power Stones to either activate blood tokens or Reckoner Bankbusters or whatever, which is really exciting. Spend their mana. Unfortunately, rather than bringing back the Cityscape Leveler, make the 4/4 Skitterbing Battalions, and we're dead on board. So we concede. Ended up being kind of a close game if you don't consider these, though. Oh well. So going into game 2, we keep lands and spells, which you kind of just have to with a mid-range deck like this, playing our tap land with the intention of playing Reckoner Bankbuster on turn 2. Play Reckoner Bankbuster on turn 2, so literally our only play. And Fable, with the intention of playing Fable the Mirrorbreaker on turn 3, since Corpse Appraiser does nothing when it enters the battlefield at this point in the game. Fable the Mirrorbreaker on turn 3. So far, the plays have been pretty obvious and nothing doing here. But we run into our first big issue. They make disappear our Fable the Mirrorbreaker. So now that is a big punch to the gut, one might say. Luckily, we top deck something we can actually play, and it does something in Wandering Mind, but it gets countered as well. So again, this is not good. This is not good. And they abrade a Reckoner Bankbuster. Things could not be going possibly worse at this point. However, we're able to play Corpse Appraiser because Wandering Mind in graveyard now and start getting our own card advantage. Now we have access to Negate and can protect our stuff from those pesky spells. They keep playing Land Go, just like a control deck. So now we have Reckoner Bankbuster with Negate backup and pressure from Corpse Appraiser. So we can start getting advantage with Reckoner Bankbuster and just pass the turn. I decided to draw a card off of Reckoner Bankbuster and letting the Abrade resolve because there are other cards that I'm more concerned about with the Negate. I'm not looking to go long with Reckoner Bankbuster. I'm looking to be able to apply pressure, stop what my opponent is doing, especially this Fable the Mirrorbreaker. Or if they resolve that Fable the Mirrorbreaker, maybe they'd be able to find cards that matter, Keep jamming with Corpse Appraiser. Now we have Disdainful Stroke and Abrade backup. They tap their many manas. Might Stone, Weak Stone. We Disdainful Stroke it. And now we're in a situation where they only have 1 card in hand. And we're applying pressure. We have access to Takanuma, which we're going to end step here. We have access to a braid. Like things are kind of okay. Unfortunately for Takenuma, there's no creatures in the graveyard, so we need to get a little bit lucky when we activate it, but I still think it's worth it to activate it. We do get lucky, hit Blood Tithe Harvester, and we can keep applying pressure, hopefully before they can play anything. That Make Disappear off the top was a great draw because it means that if they tap out for one of their big nasties, we just get to straight up counter it, which I love. Feels so good. They decide not to tap out for the big nasties. Unfortunately, we have to let them draw a card off the Reckoner Bankbuster, but we're able to kill it with the Abrade. Boom. And then we get to take our turn, and now they are dead on board, and we have Make Disappear for a big nasty, negate for anything else, and we kind of just tempoed him out this time around, which just feels really good. Mightstone, Weakstone, negate. We're done. And game is over because he's dead next turn. So that was just a tempo. We played the tempo game rather than the mid-range game, which, you know, it's kind of how you have to kill this deck because, if the deck goes too long, you just lose to it. And going into game 3, we keep Disdainful Stroke, Abrade lands. It's not the best keep again because the tempo hands are how you win this game, but I think it's close enough that it's fine to keep. It stops the Bankbuster on 2 and whatnot, which they decide not to play. But we top deck Fable, so we were able to play that turn 3 Fable here in a second, which feels really good. Play our Blood Tithe Harvester, which play into Stern Lesson, so they're able to hit our ramp, or they're able to hit their ramp, and which is really unfortunate when they hit the ramp and everything, because now they have to Mightstone, Weakstone, which you can do nothing about. They kill the Blood Tithe Harvester. We're in a little bit of a precarious position. Killing the Mightstone, Weakstone is pretty imperative though, so they don't jam one of their big baddies, even though we do have Disdainful Stroke. I don't want to have to deploy that right now. I want them to have to play a different game before they start windmill slamming. Decided to play the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. I'm getting a little behind. I decided to play the Fable of the Mirror Breaker on turn 5 instead of Corpse Appraiser. I would like to get Mirror Breaker online, get it as close to possible to flipping. And I'm still able to leave Negate and Disdainful Stroke back up. So actually, I'm feeling pretty okay right now at this time. They just play and land go. Playing at instant speed, super annoying. I decided to ship this land. It's the only card in my hand I didn't want. Hit a Make Disappear. Make Disappear is actually weirdly good against this big mana Power Stone deck, which you wouldn't think it would be, because they want to start jamming their cards as fast as possible as soon as they hit 7 mana. Excuse me, as soon as they hit 8 mana, as soon as they hit 9 mana. So Make Disappear feels really good against this deck. That being said, I decided to leave Counter Magic up instead of Guardbreaker or Bankbuster. They attempt to play a small Skitterbeam Battalion, which we Disdainful Stroke, and gets countered to Make Disappear. However, it's a small Skitterbeam Battalion, so it's 3/2/2. So like that's manageable, especially when we have a 3/3. It kind of stonewalls us because I don't want to trade a 3/3 for a 2/2, but that's totally okay. We just get to cast our Fable of the Mirror Breaker. We have Negate, Make Disappear up. We're fine. We probably looking to Abrade one of these, and then next turn, like Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, a Corpse Appraiser, and start jamming or something like that. They're seeking out answers now with Stern Lesson and Jam Mightstone, Weakstone, which we're able to take out. This one's actually kind of a tough decision. I thought about this one for a while when I actually played the game, whether I wanted to do it with Make Disappear or Negate. I decide on Negate because really at this point, the only cards I'm super worried about are these big nasty artifacts like an actual Skitterbeam Battalion or a Cityscape Leveler, and Make Disappear deals with both of those just by sacking a Goblin token. And frankly, if it's Cityscape Leveler, they have to target on cast, so like hitting, they'll probably target Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, which means I get to Make Disappear for like literally all the value by just sacking whatever they target, which feels really good. Well, where Negate literally wouldn't counter any of them. We get to take our turn. We draw another Abrade. I don't know. Ship the Abrade. However, we get access to Invoke Despair, and we do exactly what... Whoops. We do exactly what I just mentioned last turn, which we just Abrade something, Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, the Corpse Appraiser, and jam. What's beautiful about that, though, is by abrading the original Skitterbeam Battalion, where you give a target for this new Corpse Appraiser, where we hit a land, which feels really good. playing the Reckoner Bankbuster at this point because we have the treasure token for the Make Disappear if we really, really need it. Finally, the Corpse Appraiser gets strangled, which I thought was kind of a weird choice, especially since like you don't really care about the Corpse Appraiser, you care about the Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, but like I guess killing one or the other is totally fine. Plays Cityscape Leveler, targeting the Reckoner Bankbuster, and we are able to counter Cityscape Leveler even though Reckoner Bankbuster goes bye-bye. So now we have Reflection with an Invoke Despair facing down a Scattered Beam Battalion when they have one card in hand. So obviously, you know, we're looking to Invoke Despair. We have 2 Reflections of Kiki-Jiki. I think about this for a second and actually decide to just play Splinter Twin for a second here, because it actually doesn't matter what happens here when we play Splinter Twin, right? Because it attacks something, you can just copy something when they attack with it, and now we're just like one more token down than we would be, because we can wait till end step, and then with that trigger on the stack of sacrificing the thing, then we can do our Splinter Twin stuff. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And if you do the math, they are dead on board, especially if you include Invoke Despair. They do actually make me go through this, by the way. It was kind of lame of them. It's kind of hard to mess up, but it's quite a few clicks. So this is with the trigger on the stack on end step. Just if you don't know, if you're able to do it on end step, Reflection of Kiki-Jiki says until next end step. So in doing that, it means that, you know, if you do it on end step, you get it the following turn, which means I can attack with them the following turn. And so that plus Invoke Despair means they're dead, and I win the match. Now, going into round 3 at 2-0, some really tough matches, some really interesting matches. Mulligan the 1-lander, keep the 3-lander, move on with our life. Basic Plains generally means it's mono white mid-range, which is, man, it's hard to play against this matchup. I think I remember misplaying at one point during this match. See if I remember where. I decided to leave Make Disappear up, mostly for like wedding announcement I'm really afraid of, rather than just jamming the Reckoner Bankbuster. Though I decided to Make Disappear the Ambitious Farmhand, maybe choke them from a land or something. You know, next turn, we'll see. Didn't really turn out, so just jam Fable past the turn. The thing is Lay Down Arms, which, you know, you always kind of love it when the Fable token eats a like a hard removal spell. You know, it feels like a 1.5 for 1, like I said before, which feels really, really good. At this point, I just shipped a land to the Fable the Mirror Breaker trigger, abraded the Reckoner Bankbuster, and we are fully into this mid-range game right now. I'm taking 1 every turn, which feels awful. Though we do rip another Fable, I really, really wished it was a land, you know, alongside the Fable. But I really want to leave this negate up. Again, we're really afraid of like wedding announcement and stuff like that. So I decided to just play the Reckoner Bankbuster. Reckoner Bankbuster alongside negate is really, really good. This is probably the first mistake here. He attacked the 1/1 into the 2/2, and I really didn't think even for a second what he could have. I couldn't think of it for some reason. Had a Ganjo and just killed our Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, which is just an amazing exchange for them. Because I really was just like, I have negate. What could it be? Meh. And yeah, negate can't hit Ganjo. So that was really unfortunate. I think that was the first like blunder on my part, but you know, it is what it is. They do play something we can negate, so we are unable to draw with Reckoner Bankbuster, which is totally okay. But we hit the Fable the Mirror Breaker, so now we're in a situation where we get to leave a braid up. If we don't need to use the braid, we get to draw with Reckoner Bankbuster, and we call that value. They do cast a Sarah Paragon alongside Restoration, and we got to start drawing cards at this point. We do hit our Invoke Despair along with the land, which is beautiful. So we are able to take out the Restoration and all of that stuff. So the reason I'm attacking first here is so I can abrade the Ambitious Farmhand so Invoke Despair can kill the Sarah Paragon, because abrade can't kill Sarah Paragon, but, you know, all of that stuff. And the only way I get the mana to cast both Invoke Despair and abrade is attacking with the Goblin Shaman. So we cast our Invoke Despair, and now we're in a very, very commanding position. I'm going to spoil it for a second, though. I lose this game, and I'm going to really explain where it goes wrong, because I'm pretty sure I know what turn. I'm not sure if it was a blunder or what. He's just drawing cards at this point, trying to regain his position. We're drawing cards as well. We kind of brick, but we also have access to like negate now with Corpse Praiser. I'm like, I can't lose this game possibly. Let's do this. Heck yeah. They play Lauren. That's a little annoying because it means they get rid of the reflection. I'm like, all right. We're able to take out the Reckoner Bankbuster with negate. Like things are going great. We're still, I would argue, a reasonable position. We draw a card with Reckoner Bankbuster and brick. Draw a card with Xander's Lounge. Hit the Blood Tithe Harvester. We're still fine. Let's keep jamming in. Everything's okay. We have a ton of mana, a ridiculous amount of treasure. We're drawing cards off of these blood tokens. Like everything's fine. He uses, unfortunately, Elspeth's Resplendent. Gets a card. Man, it's a little frustrating. It has a shield counter on it, which is going to be annoying to attack through. But it's just a 1/1. Like, it's totally fine. But it is step 1 in rebuilding their hand. I decided to play Reckoner Bankbuster and draw a card off it because we have literally infinite mana. And we hit our Invoke Despair, which is beautiful. So second Invoke Despair, especially when we have to deal with this Planeswalker. We get to take out the Planeswalker and the Spirited Companion without having to worry about the shield token. And we get to jam for a whole bunch. That's the scientific term, is a whole bunch. So at this point, I'm like, okay, like we're applying a ridiculous amount of pressure. Like something special needs to happen for us to lose. So they play Wedding Announcement. That's fine. And we just cast another Invoke Despair for like the millionth turn in a row. Take out the Wedding Announcement. We play our Wandering Mind. We get ahead of it a little bit. Like, let's go. Like, I feel like we're still playing really well. And we hit our 4th Invoke Despair off Wandering Mind. So at this point, like, I don't feel like it's possible to lose. And I think this exactly is, like, maybe one of the turns that really messed us up. So I attack with a 3/3 and the 4/4 because I'm like, if they have nothing, I just win, right? They only have one blocker. But they block and then kill, right? They block Wandering Emperor. And so now they're at 4, and I just got rid of my 3/3 for no reason. So now we're in trouble. Now they have a Planeswalker. They're going to start battling back into the game here, which is rough. And they hit Sarah Paragon. So now they start getting value off the Planeswalker, value off Sarah Paragon. And man, I don't know. I really feel like if I just waited that turn, assumed they had a removal spell, and then Invoke Despaired, this turn, I feel like I would be in a lot better shape. I'm really not sure. I really think I should have been patient, but hindsight's 20/20. And then what's going to happen here is, even though I'm still drawing a bunch of cards, even though I'm killing their stuff, the game is going to slowly slip away from me because of this Sarah Paragon, and I'm just unable to claw my way back in from the Sarah Paragon. But we can watch it. We Invoke Despair here. We're now officially out of Invoke Despairs. This is a ridiculously long game. Right, and unable to attack. They're at 6 now. Also, a crazy thing off of Sarah Paragon is when the things die, you gain 2 life. So they're even gaining life out of, like, a one big swing range. Able to bring Lauren back, which is disgusting. However, we are able to make Disappear the Restoration. Woo, but they just get to cast it next turn off of Sarah Paragon. And now we're in trouble, man. Like, a game that felt unlosable is now slipping away, which is just nuts. Is so crazy to me that we end up losing this game. Play the Reckoner Bankbuster, hit a land, and now I realize I'm gonna lose. They're way ahead. But let's sit back and bask. They hit Restoration, nothing we can do. The game is all but over, which is so miserable. It's so miserable. It makes me so sad watching it again. So sad. Woo, Fable and Mirror Breaker doesn't really do anything. Maybe, I mean, there's not a lot of pressure going on. There's just a lot of value going on. So I figured, like, I'll just discard 2 lands and, see if I can hit runner. We're in good shape. Water Number makes it harder. Oh, it's so rough. You need to bring something back too. I'm just getting buried in value at this point. It's so rough. They're drawing so many cards, gonna cast things from the graveyard. Now we have a counter on a lifelinker, and they feel comfortable applying pressure at this point. And this is where they start not only turning the corner, but they are stabilized and bringing it back on me. I obviously discard 2 lands. I hit land, go for the throat. Decide to cycle the Xander's Lounge. At this point, we are able, or we do attempt to kill the Sarah Paragon. But the damage really has been done at this point. Like, it's a rough ride now. Especially in the eyes of this like 4/4 lifelinker. We trade Bankbusters that aren't doing anything, and I mean I semi need to protect my life total now. Unfortunately, discard a land. We had another Blood Tithe Harvester. Like maybe we're clawing back in, especially if this like flipped reflection survives. But this 5/5 lifelinker is like a problem. But instead, they just play another Sarah Paragon and continue the gravy train. Like, I can't really explain any decision. I'm just like, so rough. I think this game, while it seems like I'm getting unlucky and I'm just getting buried, you know, and it is just luck based, like, not doing the Aganjo on turn 2 into my reflection of Kiki-Jiki, or not turn 2, like early in the game, into my reflection of Kiki-Jiki was a huge turning point of the game. In addition, just not attacking and not trying to close the game, even though they have access to a bunch of cards that can stop me. With the 3/3 and the 4/4, I think I would have won the following turn. Casting 4 Invoke Despairs wasn't enough. This white deck is so powerful. I really want to kill this 5/5. We finally do. The thing is, we're just getting buried by this Sarah Paragon. There's just no world here. Again, I want to show you that I'm unable to claw back in. I can't remember what I hit off the Wandering Mind, but it wasn't anything relevant. And like I realized it was just over with double winning announcement. Sarah Paragon, we're done. So we move on to game 2, and I'm just like super sad how close I was to winning. Into game 2, we mulligan a one-hander into one lander into this. We're gonna have similar issues as like our last match in that we don't have blue mana, unfortunately. That is immediately remedied with Xander's Lounge, but we don't have Make Disappear up. We're really lucky we're on the play. So they don't just like wedding announcement us into like nothing. I'm terrified of wedding announcement, so I just passed the turn and I got rewarded because they casted it. And now I have Make Disappear. So that's super dope. Got rewarded for not casting Fable, didn't let my mana die, and I decided to just double spell instead of play our Fable because we want all the cards in our hand. Let's draw a card we don't want first before we try to get to the second chapter. They lay down arms. At this point, though, it's a little awkward. Like, I have these Fables, and that's well and good. But they have 4 cards in hand. They're making their land drops. They have their own Saga. It's a little nerve-wracking. They bring back... And now they have AO. And AO... Man, we really need a removal for AO, so I decided to sack the Blood Tithe Harvester. And then they get a Sarah Paragon. That effing Sarah Paragon off of AO. And now I don't have the removal for it because I used Blood Tithe Harvester to get rid of AO. I think that was the play, though. Like, AO was just going to be killing me in the air. I don't play any soul transfers, so, like, I think you just needed to take out the AO. I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough go. We're able to negate the wedding announcement, but at this point, it's like, if I can't deal with the Sarah Paragon, it is game over no matter what. I have to think about this for a while. Decide to discard Bankbuster just because like we need to deal with the Sarah Paragon. And now we have Fable. So now I'm like, okay, maybe it's okay if we get buried in value. Maybe we can start just like Splinter Twinning them, right? Especially if we can just start drawing lands and mana and stuff. Like, that's okay, right? Like, that's fine. Let's do it. Unfortunately, they attack recklessly into our enchantments and whatnot, and they decide to farewell away the enchantments, which means all of our Fables go away, which is a nightmare. And I also double block their enchantment because it was a good block, and so they just like were able to snipe one of my goblins for like no reason. Evoke Despair is one of the better draws, but it does so much less. when I'm unable to draw cards off of it, and they're able to still have all of the like the good stuff that they like. You're just being buried by Sarah Paragon. Buried by Sarah Paragon, the deck. Feels so bad. Feels so bad. It's like totally just like grind fest. At least the first game was just so swingy. It was like wild how swingy the first game was. It was so impressively swingy. You know, they get rid of a Reckoner Bankbuster and we're just being buried at this point. I think the game's all but over. We can draw a land. I sack the blood token, draw another land. The game's over. We're done. So I'm now 2-1. So we go into the next round at 2-1. I decided to keep, you know, the Reckoner Bankbuster or Braid Corpse Praiser lands. That's totally okay. You know, we decide to play this Reckoner Bankbuster. I'm not sure what I'm playing against yet, so I don't know if leaving up a Braid or Negate is like good enough. Decide for the guaranteed value. They Blood Tithe Harvester. So now what's really cool is we're able to cut down, and then we can leave up Reckoner Bankbuster. Oh, I think I remember what happens here. Oh, yeah. So I want to explain what went down here. So the plan was to leave up Reckoner Bankbuster or a Braid something. They played something for me to a Braid. I was totally okay with discarding, you know, either a land. I was totally okay with discarding something. I think I planned on discarding the land because we could just like search for more off Reckoner Bankbuster. And I clicked no. So instead of a Braid, you know, kill the Graveyard Trespasser and discard a card, it was discard a Braid and pay 2 mana. So that was straight up a misclick. That was not a misplay. So that bad omens. I'm probably still tilted from the white match at this point. So we're just dealing and moving on with our lives. But I think we're going to get buried here in a second. Unfortunately. I play a Shieldred, decide to draw a card before Shieldred. What's ridiculous about this is that this game would have been wildly different if I actually discarded a card with that Graveyard Glutton. Because we can... If they play a creature here, we just make disappear it. If we, you know, and then we can untap and invoke Despair. But at this point, the game's over. Like, they're about to attack for 8. I untap. I can only kill one of them, and then they kill me the next turn. Like, it's absolutely insane. Going into game 2. Decide to keep some good mid-range cards, you know, some card advantage and Siphon Insight, Reckoner Bankbuster, you know, card selection and Fable. Like, that's totally okay. You know, we're hitting our sideboard cards. Like, I'm feeling kind of good. Like, let's do it. Let's get this Bankbuster on the battlefield. Like, rock and roll. Like, we have, like, if I could sculpt a hand, this is really close. Which I love. Don't ever roll this time around for the Blood Tithe Harvester, but we just, like, are deploying our creatures, deploying our stuff. And what's beautiful is we don't have to worry about this counter magic against the red-black deck. I do decide to discard one of the Siphon Insights. In hindsight, I feel like I should have discarded both. Just because it has flashback. By the time it matters, like I shouldn't mind casting or using 3 mana for it. I do decide to not play anything and pass the turn. I decided to not play the Henrika, mostly because it's a 1/3. It doesn't block well. I want to go for the throat one of these Blood Tithe Harvesters because it can apply that pressure. And I can either go for the throat, activate Bankbuster, or go for the throat, Siphon Insight. Both of them are totally fine. They jam. We go for the throat just to preserve life total. You know, we go to 14. They play another Blood Tithe Harvester. And an Unlicensed Hearse. So now the discard Siphon Insight feels bad. I feel like a genius for not discarding both, even though that was like probably in a vacuum correct play, draw a card off Reckoner Bankbuster. So now we're in a little bit of a weird position. We're able to play our Blood Tithe Harvester and then Wandering Mind. So we're kind of getting ahead of it. We're getting that card advantage. I still feel pretty good, which is awesome. Unfortunately, they're able to kill 2 of our creatures with Blood Tithe Harvesters. They're fine with trading that off and just cast a Shieldred. That's okay, though, because we can just invoke Despair. Like, that's totally fine. Like, we're actually in a fine position. You know, we get to draw 2 cards. They lose 4 life. They sack their Shieldred. Like, let's do this thing. Unfortunately, I'm at a kind of a low life total where we're at. And especially drawing the cards off of Shieldred. One thing I did not see and did not 100% realize is the manning up of a Licensed Heiress and sacking it. I genuinely didn't see that at that time. I don't think my play would have changed. I think we just need to do this, look to chump block Shieldred, and then maybe hit a removal spell off of Siphon Insight or something. It's possible just Siphon Inciting them like out of necessity and desperation was like the correct play. I'm not sure. In any case, like I think the position was a lot closer than I thought at the time. But it ended up being a bad play. Here I just have to chump block, obviously. And now we are relying on the top of our deck and off of Siphon Insight, which we need to answer Shieldred immediately. Fortunately, we are at a spot where we actually like can answer Shieldred, which is beautiful, in Invoke Despair. But now we're in a position where we are dead to a creature that can man up Reckoner Bankbuster. And he gets to draw cards to look for it. The thing is, like, if I just like Siphon Insight for something first, it's totally possible. Like, I would have been in the exact same position. So, like, I think Invoke Despair was better. They neglect to kill me, which is beautiful. I love just not dying. However, we're in a position now that they can just man up and sack just like before, keep the Shieldred, and then I'm dead the following turn, even if they don't attack. Or even if I can chump block with the Henrika. So I Siphon Insight, I see Cut Down, and like a big artifact I can't cast. And so I'm just dead on board. So now I'm 2-2 and have to resurrect this league. Right, try to fight back to 3-2. In round 5, we keep lands and spells. Just totally fine. Basic mountain. All right, let's fight against burn. I don't actually mind the burn matchup in this deck. We just got to remove their stuff. Them not playing a second creature, a second thing to add to the board is beautiful for us. We love being lightning struck, getting no value off the Kamuno. We're able to kill the flipped version, like, so that just did nothing to us. Like, we're a little bit ahead on tempo. We get to apply stuff to the board at this point. I think they kept a burn heavy hand. And main deck of Braid, which is a little bit interesting, and Jaya. So, like, the hand's totally fine. They get to maybe start taking over the game with Jaya. However, we have these removal spells, these counter spells, and we hit a black source off the top. We can deal with Jaya with Invoke Despair. Right, so we're able to kill the Monastery Swiftspear. Unfortunately, this has to resolve, which is a little brutal. We're kind of cheering for them playing something else so we can get value off of the Make Disappear. But it doesn't happen. I decide not to kill the 1/1 in hopes that we draw the land, and we actually do. And this Invoke Despair is 5 mana. Everything on the board goes away. They have 1 card in hand, and I'm still at 12, and we are solidly stabilized. And they just pay a land and pass, and now we are just like, we've all but won the game at this point. It's interesting against these aggro decks when you're playing these mid-range or control decks. Like, every micro decision really matters, because it's weird. It's like all of a sudden you're just like fighting for your life, fighting for your life, fighting for your life. Oh, I'm stabilized. I've won. Like, everything's okay. And that's exactly what happened in this game. And at this point, we just bury them in card advantage and counter magic and all of that stuff. Like, the game is literally over. At this point, they have no cards in hand. They have 2/1/1s. We have a recurring card advantage, and we win the game. Going into game 2, we keep lands and spells again. This was a little less strong than our last hand. However, they did mulligan to 6, and we're able to duress away a Jaya, which is the big thing we're afraid of. We saw Lightning Strike, Shiv, and Devastator. So we're just like, this hand can deal with that. Like, that's totally fine. They Lightning Strike our face. Like, let's go. But yeah, you can hit me with your Monastery Swift Spear. We know for a fact that they can't pump up their Swift Spear, though. But I decided that negate or the go for the throat for the dragon is a little bit stronger. They decide not to play the dragon, so I just decided to go for the throat, the Swift Spear. Now we have negate a braid up, but they do not play a 5th land and just play Devastator, so we're able to abrade the Devastator, and everything's just going perfectly our way. At this point, like, I know we're in great shape. I decide to invoke Despair to get that card advantage because I don't need to kill their stuff with it. And we hit our duresses and cut downs and all of this nasty stuff. I see they have exactly a braid in their hand. The game's over. Again, you just like back and forth, game's over. The game's even more over than the first game was. I'm able to grab removal spells. I have access to counter spells. I just play it slow here, as it just doesn't matter. Right, I negate this to like keep my blocker so I can't hit me with 2/2. I only negated that because I have access to so much, and they're playing off the top of their deck. Right, this is just, it's just ridiculous. So I play a land and decide to invoke Despair with counter magic up. We're just dealing damage, drawing cards. We're just vibing right now. They are able to play Bloodthirsty Adversary and with the flashback, so they're able to burn us a little bit more. We're not worried about it. We do need a way to kill them, though, at this point. So that's the big thing I'm digging for, which is why I cycled the Xander's Lounge. So we have counter magic. So I'm a little worried about killing them, but remember they're working off the top of their deck like we are. Invoke Despair, draw 3 more cards, deal 6 more damage, and now they are dead on board, and I have counter magic up. They try to kill. So again, the negate happens because they're dead on board and they're working off the top of their deck. Monastery Swift Spear for the chump block, and we have the removal in our hand, and we win the game, which is beautiful. Just beautiful matches against Mono Red. So there you have it. I hope this video was worth it for you. Definitely made some mistakes. Definitely had some coin flip decisions that went wrong for me, especially in that mono white matchup. That was really rough. And some misclicks, but that's the reality of Magic and reality of Magic on Magic Online. And I think if I cut those out, or if I did another league and I posted that instead, that wouldn't be a like raw run through, because nobody's perfect. So if you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.